So I called Dave not that long ago, said I'm retiring at the end of the year, and he provided some very helpful advice, as Dave always does. He said, I want to give you a way to think about this that'll really help you think through your transition. He said, essentially what you're going through is going from where you really feel like a who's who to more of a who's he, which was helpful, I thought, once I stopped being depressed about it. But I asked Dave if I could use this time to talk about the book a bit. And he said, well, just let's, he didn't really want to talk about it. He said, let's go back and talk about your transition, which was, okay, I'm already depressed. Why are you talking to me about this? So I realized that I would be going from a place, or to a place, where my jokes would be less funny, my strategic insights would be less compelling, my requests to get things done that would be less expedited for me. The good news, that I was in training, it's just like being at home, right? So, I'm noticing some people might have that relationship. So what I want to talk to you about today is something that we think of as an actual business model in our company, and we actually think it is the secret sauce. You've heard a lot of people refer to secret sauce. This happens to be the working title of a book. You're going to tell me whether or not I should write, hopefully at the end of this thing, if it's worth the time and the content. But it is something that we see as the most valuable asset that's not on our books. And I'm going to talk about why we view it that way, and I'm going to try to put it in a different context for you. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about the company. So our company started in 1946. It was 3 brothers. It was 1 location, 0 team members, 0 revenue, 1 truck, based in Salt Lake City. Fast forward to 2024, we're 3 family branches that still own 100% of the company. 4,200 team members, 200 plus locations around the world, and we're about $4.5 billion in revenues. So we've enjoyed a really nice success as a company. And if you think about what we do, Ryan did a nice introduction. We're in the business of moving and managing materials for customers. We move all kinds of stuff. We own trucks, we own boats, we own trains. We move and manage materials that are essential to our customers' businesses. We tend to move things that are hard to handle. And so when I talk about hard to handle, they tend to be things that will explode, catch fire, burn, maim, poison, or drown you. So if you're wondering what our first challenge is, it's attracting talent. We tend not to use those terms when we're talking about bringing people on. We do put things in context. But the other thing that we do typically is we move and manage materials that if they don't get to where they need to go, when they're supposed to be there, that causes problems. It'll cause plants to shut down. It'll cause all kinds of issues. So we've had some good success. We've had what I would consider paced growth. Dave may disagree with me about this being paced growth. For a long time, we were relatively flat, but over the last dozen years or so, we've done 25 acquisitions. We've grown through organic means as well. Family still owns 100% of the business, and in 78 years, I'm the 3rd CEO. The 4th one will be coming on here at the end of the year. That is usually, when I say we've been in business for 78 years, that's usually impressive to people until you come to Tugboat. And then you have Radio Flyer, you have Ewing, White Castle, J.E. Dunn, O.C. Tanner, Edward Jones. You have what I've told is 30 Tugboat members that are 100 years old or older, which is pretty amazing. And then you have Hollingsworth and Vos. A 300-year-old company, allegedly. Hopefully Val Hollingsworth is sleeping in this morning and is not going to hear this. Is Val here? Hopefully Val's not here. No, Val should be here. I think last year, if you were here, you heard Val talk about one of their first customers being Methuselah. Pretty sure he said they did the air filtration system on the Ark. I may have that wrong. 300 years. Don't you think when you get over 100 after that, it's just kind of showing off? The only evidence, and I say this with all due respect, the only evidence we have of this being a 300-year-old company is some parchmenty looking national treasure kind of document, right, that says they invented light or paper. And I think if you give me just a couple hours, some grapefruit juice, a candle, I can see that it's Nicolas Cage who actually signed that document. All kidding aside, incredibly impressive story, incredibly impressive company. And I would say that we ought to honor every Tugboat member who's 100 years old or older. Let's give them a big round of applause. So I'm talking about connection as a secret sauce, and I recognize that doing that with this audience is a little bit like preaching to the choir. You're in Tugboat because you recognize the power of being connected. I would just ask you to think about as you go through this process, could I do more? Could I do it differently? Are there things that actually would make me even more connected? Because we've seen the benefit, and I think we see the benefit as we look around in the economy and the broader marketplace. For us, this whole connection idea was built on the foundation of the three Savage brothers who founded the company. Do not please look too closely at the magnificent horses in this picture. They are mules. The brothers favored torque over horsepower all day long, and so that's why they went with mules. They fought, they argued, but they never did anything significant without agreeing. And that power of the connectivity among those three would have been incredible enough to lead the company, but they extended it to everybody that they dealt with. They built true, authentic connections with everybody they dealt with. And then they put it in something called the Vision and Legacy that they wrote after being in business for just 50 short years. So this we consider our cultural constitution. Beautiful language, it's a fantastic document. We boiled it down to 3 simple phrases to guide the activities of our team members. Do the right thing, find a better way, and make a difference. And if you're doing that, every team member in the company is doing the right thing. You're never going to get in trouble for that. So if you think about this, I'm going to try to make the argument that connectivity is the secret sauce, but you have to look at the context for it. There are lots of things that we're seeing right now. Some of the speakers have talked about it. There's so many things that divide us. If you look at this list, people are going to be pushed onto one side or the other, and we're seeing lots of things going on in the media that seem to constantly want to pull us apart. But you also can see great examples of where we are more strongly connected and the benefits that has. From the things you see in terms of physical connection, so think about the advances that have been made in our society that have come from physical advances. Bridges, tunnels, roads, engines, cars, infrastructure, things that people have built to connect us. Or the virtual connections. When you think about things like the telephone, telegraph, internet, social media, all kinds of things that have created opportunities for us to collaborate better, be connected better, and actually have great outcomes. So I'm going to ask you to accept that as a premise, the power of connection. We've seen enormous advances from both physical and virtual connections. Where do you see those connections? So you take a step back. Where in our society do we see those connections? They tend to be in our military. They're in social and religious movements. They're in affiliations with sports teams and colleges, in philanthropy. They're in national pride, hopefully. They're in families. You see them all over the place. And so if you peel that back and you do what we heard yesterday, do a root cause analysis on what's common. What are the things that are common in those situations? Where do we see what we would consider the secret sauce ingredients? And they tend to be in a clearly defined purpose and mission, right? You get that very clear sense of it. You get a shared vision and goals. You have typically an identity that goes along with that affiliation and a sense of belonging. There are typically symbols and icons and stories and uniforms and face painting and all kinds of stuff that creates a bond. And we see it. Where do we see it? We see it in Tugboat. You see the very purposeful way that Dave and the team describe why this group exists and why we're all part of it. So it's clear for us why it is. And there are rewards, and there are symbology. There are all kinds of things to reinforce that, to make it real for us. I would tell you that I think as members of Tugboat, as purpose-driven, principles-based, people-first companies, we are trying to be strong and resilient as businesses so we can continue those things. So how do you build a connected organization? Because I would argue that regardless of where you are, we all have the ability to be even stronger when it comes to making stronger connections. And when we think about it in these areas, and they're not going to surprise you, they're the areas that you'd expect. We think about it in terms of making sure that people know why we exist as organizations. They understand the culture. They know what's expected. They know how people should be treated. They know what the purpose of the organization is. They see the relevance of it, and they're clear about the strategy. Strategic direction has to be clear, so people know what they're getting themselves into. And then when we shift to the people and we start talking, look, is that not a gorgeous group of people right there? When we shift to the people, it's about creating a safe space for people. I think Lisa Ingram said it yesterday. Safe place for people to show up as they are. A safe place for people to write themselves into the story that will continue for future generations. We think of treating people like friends and family. We think of, hopefully better than some of us treat our family, but we think of people, treating people with the respect and the care and the consideration. So we celebrate their successes, we celebrate their milestones, and we're there when they need us. We're also there when they're having tough times to build that relationship and the strong connection that we want so that they can see themselves as part of our organizations over time. We also think that words matter. We think that words are really important. So we don't have a headquarters in our company. We have a service support center. So when I go to 200 plus locations, I can ask, is our service support center serving and supporting us? We don't have a human resources department. We have a people solutions group where people can go and get answers to questions and they can get things solved. We don't have employees, we have team members. We don't want people to think of themselves as a human resource to be deployed. We want them to think of themselves as part of a winning team, as we heard this morning as well. We also don't focus on turnover, we focus on retention. It's kind of interesting, you think about it, people get with the old expression of we get what we measure. We were so focused on turnover, we were actually getting it. So we decided to be focused on retention, and it changed the game for us. We also don't say that you work for Savage, you work with Savage. And we don't say you work for someone, you work with someone, which changes the dynamic of the relationship when you're talking to people. Incredibly important to think about how you interact with the outside world, or how we all interact with the outside world, to our customers, to our suppliers, to our communities, to our other strategic partners. One of my favorite stories of connecting to a customer, one of our customers is ExxonMobil. If anybody's ever worked with ExxonMobil, they are a very demanding customer. I don't know about you, but my experience of customer interactions is I typically don't get calls for customers to tell me how great we are. So I got a call from ExxonMobil. We were about to do a big project, a couple of hundred new people at a chemical plant in Texas. The senior customer said, I want to do a one-on-one with you when I come to Salt Lake next time. Came to the meeting, I show up, I'm there, and 6 ExxonMobil people are there. So that was the one-on-one. It's more like a one-on-6. Started out kind of ominous. He said, I'm very concerned. You have 200 new people coming on. We love the Savage culture. I said, oh, okay. Can I leave now? Because this is good. He said, we're very concerned that you don't have enough time to Savagize the new team members. That was maybe the best interaction I've ever had with a customer. The customer was concerned that we weren't going to do enough to do the things that we were working hard on every day to make sure that they would actually see the value. Get a local call from a sports team, little league team, and it's annoying, and you say, why do I want to do that? Reach into the community, build that strength. We invite the regulators to come in. We're regulated by every one of the alphabet agencies in this country. It just happens. We're on roads, we're in boats, we're all over the place, and so we invite them in. We invite relationships in our local communities with fire departments, police departments, schools, with hospitals, so they know who we are, and they're not surprised. And when we get into trouble, they're a lot more willing to help us. It's a connection. We're trying to build connection. This is the tricky one, because I'm not a psychologist and I'm not a psychotherapist, but I will tell you, any success I've enjoyed as a leader has come from a deeper understanding of the baggage that I carry as an individual. So get a coach, get a therapist, do 360s, get some people in your organization to make sure they tell you the truth, but you want to understand how you're interacting and how your presence is felt. Great individual suggestion yesterday. Could you make sure you're looking in the camera when you do a video, right? That's the kind, you want to make sure that you're having the intended consequence that you're trying to create. This one is a little bit about it comes out of the expression of if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. So we look at problems and say, what are we supposed to learn? How are we supposed to get better? We stay very connected to the challenges back to a conversation yesterday about root cause analysis. Let's do a root cause analysis on this and figure out how we can be better. Change the dynamic in the relationship. I will tell you, some of the best relationships we have with our customers have come from difficult situations with customers. So instead of running and hiding or making excuses, fully embrace, go in, and make the situation better. And it's been better for us overall. I know I don't need to tell Tugboat members why they should care about connection. But when you think about all of the benefits that it has in terms of the alignment of the organization, this is all about reducing friction in the organization. This is all about streamlining things. It's all about talent that wants to come because they know who you are. Resources that are getting allocated better because people understand the mission, the purpose, and the strategy of the company. Innovation that happens better, growth, quality, productivity, all those things, and they all result in a stronger brand. And so we see the benefits of this. We were fortunate enough to have this be part of who we were as a company right from the start. Now, you've heard of IQ, you've heard of EQ. We're going to give you a new Q. This is the CQ. So if you really want to do a self-evaluation, there's a way you can kind of look at it with your team and say, where do we have opportunities to be even more connected? How can our organization be more connected? Are we checking all the boxes that are important to us? And so this is a work in progress as well. Now, last year, if you were here, you got to see an exercise that, to me, illustrated the power of our individual creativity and what we bring when we come together. We were asked by an artist to write down on a Post-it note, draw or write down something we couldn't live without, and then we handed those in blindly, and we came back later in the day, and we got to see something that, to me, represented the power of our creativity when we come together. It was a pretty amazing experience and illustrates for me that that's a way we can think about the ability we have to be creative together and innovate together. I would tell you that the dirty little secret of what I'm calling the secret sauce is that it doesn't take a lot of money, doesn't take a lot of capital to actually be really good at it. It takes an investment of time, it takes an investment of energy, and it's something that pays back enormous returns. Happy to talk about this over lunch. I'll tell you, we're serving Wagyu beef burgers and giving out $100 bills. But you guys go anywhere you want to. Thank you.